You meet someone and something about them pulls you in immediately. They are magnetic, confident. They seem to see something in you that no one else does. But months later, you are exhausted, confused, and questioning your own reality. What happened? And more importantly, what was really going on inside their mind the entire time? To understand a narcissist, you have to stop looking at their behavior and start looking at what drives it. Because what you see on the surface, the arrogance, the manipulation, the charm, is not the truth of who they are. It is a construction, a very carefully built wall. And behind that wall is something most people never expect to find. Psychologists define narcissistic personality disorder as a pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a deep lack of empathy for others. But that clinical definition misses something crucial. It misses the engine underneath all of it. Because at the core of almost every narcissist is not confidence, it is terror. In the 1970s, psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut proposed something radical. He argued that narcissism is not simply selfishness or ego. It is a developmental wound. Something went wrong early, very early. A child who does not receive consistent emotional mirroring, whose feelings are dismissed, mocked, or ignored, does not learn how to regulate their own sense of self-worth. So they build a substitute, a false self, a version of themselves that is untouchable, superior, above criticism. And they spend the rest of their lives protecting that false self at all costs. This is why a narcissist can seem completely unaffected by things that would devastate most people while simultaneously crumbling over something that appears trivial. The false self is not evenly armored. There are cracks, and your job, in their mind, is to never find them. Think about the early stages of a relationship with a narcissist. Psychologists call it love bombing. Intense attention, constant compliments, the feeling that this person has chosen you above everyone else. But here is what is actually happening. They are not falling for you. They are recruiting you. You are being selected to serve a very specific function to reflect their false self back to them. To be a mirror that only shows them what they need to see. Researchers Craig Malkin and others have studied what happens inside narcissistic relationships over time. What they found is that the narcissist does not experience connection the way most people do. They experience supply. Narcissistic supply is any form of attention, admiration, fear, envy, even anger that confirms their internal narrative, that they are special, that they matter, that they are above ordinary people and ordinary rules. When you admire them, you feed that supply. When you challenge them, you threaten it. And when you threaten it, something shifts in their behavior immediately. This is where the cruelty comes from. Not from hatred, not even from indifference. It comes from fear. A fear so deeply buried that even they do not know it is there. When you question a narcissist, when you hold up a mirror that shows them something other than the image they need, what activates inside them is called narcissistic injury. And their response to that injury is narcissistic rage. The rage is disproportionate, explosive, confusing. You said something small, something reasonable, and suddenly you are being torn apart. What just happened? What happened is that your words, however gentle, punctured something, and the response is not about you. It never was. It is a defense mechanism so automatic, so deeply wired that the narcissist does not even experience it as a choice. Here is what makes this so psychologically complex. Most narcissists do not know they are narcissists. This is not denial in the ordinary sense. Their entire psychological architecture is built around avoiding self-awareness of their own vulnerability. The moment they would have to look at that wound, The moment genuine reflection becomes possible, their defenses activate. Blame shifts, reality bends. The story rewrites itself in real time. Psychologist Otto Kernberg described this as splitting. The narcissist mentally divides the world into all good and all bad. You are either idealizing them or betraying them. There is no middle ground. There is no nuance. Because nuance would require holding two contradictory truths at once, that they are both flawed and worthy. And that is precisely what the false self was built to prevent. This is why being close to a narcissist feels like walking on glass. You never know which version of them you are going to get. Not because they are unpredictable in a random way, but because their perception of you changes based on whether you are serving the false self or threatening it. When you are useful, you are elevated. When you are not, you are discarded or punished. Now here is the part that most people miss entirely. The narcissist suffers. Not the way their victims suffer. Not in a way that makes their behavior forgivable. But underneath all the performance, there is a person who cannot tolerate being alone with themselves, who fills every silence with stimulation, who needs constant external input because their internal world is hollow. Research by psychologist Brad Bushman found that narcissists do not actually have high self-esteem. They have unstable self-esteem. The difference is enormous. High self-esteem is quiet. It does not need to be proved. Unstable self-esteem is a fire that must be constantly fed, and it burns everything near it trying to stay alive. This is why understanding the narcissist's inner world is not about excusing them. It is about freeing yourself. Because when you see the machine behind the mask, when you understand that the love bombing was a recruitment, the rage was a defense, and the cruelty was a fear response, you stop asking what you did wrong. You stop trying to be better, smaller, more accommodating. You stop trying to fix something that was never about you. The person who pulled you in with that magnetic confidence was not showing you who they were. They were showing you what they needed you to believe. And somewhere behind that performance, behind the false self, behind the rage, behind the hunger for supply is a wound so old that even they have forgotten where it came from. You met someone and something about them pulled you in immediately. Now you know what that pull really was. Not connection, not love. A mirror being handed to someone who had been looking for their reflection their entire life.